Welcome back to my overview of the kings of France, where this week we'll take a short look at the post-revolution monarchs of France. After Louis XVI was beheaded by guillotine on January 21st, 1793, his wife Marie Antoinette followed on October 16 that same year. Their son, now Louis XVII of France, died in prison. On the night of July 27 to 28, 1794, Robespierre and several other leading figures of the French Revolution were arrested in Paris City Hall, an event which is now called the Thermidorian Reaction. In the afternoon of the next day, on July 28, they were executed, thus effectively ending the Reign of Terror. France was now placed under a five-headed government called the Directoire, which ruled the country from 1795 to 1799. Whereas voting for all was implemented during the Terror, the Directoire reintroduced voting based on a tax limit. Only 30,000 voters remained, half as many as in 1791. This allowed the Directoire to rig the elections, and the government therefore lacked popular support. When Napoleon Bonaparte engineered a coup in November 1799, he became first consul of the Republic. On May 18, 1804, the French Senate proclaimed Bonaparte Emperor Napoleon I. Differences with the United Kingdom meant France faced the war of the Third Coalition by 1805. Napoleon shattered his coalition with victories in the Ulm campaign and at the Battle of Austerlitz, which led to the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire. In 1806, the Fourth Coalition took up arms against him. Napoleon defeated Prussia, marched the Grande Armée into Eastern Europe, and defeated the Russians in June 1807 at Friedland, forcing the defeated nation of the Fourth Coalition to accept the Treaty of Tilsit. 2 years later, the Austrians challenged the French again during the War of the Fifth Coalition, but Napoleon solidified his grip over Europe after triumphing at the Battle of Wagram. Hoping to extend the continental system, his embargo against Britain, Napoleon invaded the Iberian Peninsula and declared his brother Joseph the King of Spain in 1808. Spain and Portugal revolted in the Peninsular War, aided by a British army, culminating in defeat for Napoleon's marshals. Napoleon launched an invasion of Russia in the summer of 1812. The resulting campaign witnessed the catastrophic retreat of Napoleon's Grande Armée. In 1813, Prussia and Austria joined Russian forces in a sixth coalition against France, resulting in a large coalition army defeating Napoleon at the Battle of Leipzig. The coalition invaded France and captured Paris, forcing Napoleon to abdicate in April 1814. He was exiled to the island of Elba between Corsica and Italy. In France, the Bourbons, and more specifically Louis XVIII, were restored to power. Louis, who was a younger brother of Louis XVI, was exiled during the French Revolution and the First Empire, but nonetheless adopted the name of Louis XVIII as pretender to the French throne after his nephew Louis XVII died in prison in 1795 without ever having reigned. Louis returned to France during the Restoration that followed the fall of Emperor Napoleon I. Napoleon, however, managed to escape Elba in February 1815 and regained control of France. Louis's allies responded by forming a coalition which defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815. Napoleon I abdicated in 1815 in favor of his then 4-year-old son, Napoleon II, but the latter would never rule France. Napoleon II grew up in exile in Austria, where he died at the age of 21. The British exiled Napoleon I to the remote island of St. Helena in the Atlantic, where he died in 1821 at the age of 51, and Louis XVIII resumed his kingship. Louis, who was 58 when his reign effectively began, had spent 23 years in exile. France became a constitution, while Louis pursued a policy of reconciliation and forgetting about the revolutionary violence. Louis XVIII died without issue and was buried in the Basilica of Saint-Denis. He was the last French monarch to receive this privilege and also the last to die on the throne. His younger brother, Charles, the Count of Artois, succeeded Louis as Charles X. Charles' nearly 6-year reign came to an end in 1830 with the July Revolution. Charles X signed his abdication on August 2nd along with his son Louis Antoine and fled abroad. He was succeeded by the first and only king of the House of Orléans, Louis-Philippe I. Initially, Louis-Philippe was extremely popular, dubbed the Citizen King, and implemented some liberalization, but gradually his policies became more and more conservative. Eventually, both the bourgeoisie and the growing labor movement turned against him. During the February Revolution of 1848, Louis-Philippe was forced to abdicate and fled to England, while France became a republic again. The fall of the Kingdom of France opened a window of opportunity for Louis-Napoléon Bonaparte. The son of Napoleon I's stepdaughter Hortense de Beauharnais and Napoleon's brother Louis had spent his youth in exile in various parts of Europe, where he eagerly propagandized for the Bonapartist cause, which he tried to portray as a progressive, semi-socialist ideology. Two failed coups against Louis-Philippe in 1840 had led to life imprisonment for Louis-Napoleon, but he was able to flee to England in 1846. After the abdication of Louis-Philippe, Louis-Napoleon won the presidential election of the same year. In the following years he gained popularity, and on December 2, 1851, he committed a coup d'état. After constitutional amendment the following year, Louis-Napoléon Bonaparte reinstated the empire with himself as Emperor Napoleon III. Napoleon III's rule was an important period of industrialization for the French economy. He was also responsible for a major renovation of Paris that defined the contours of the modern city. In 1870, Napoleon III led the country into the Franco-German War, which led to his downfall. Although severely weakened by diabetes and liver failure, he followed his army into the field, was defeated, captured by the Prussians in September 1870, and almost immediately declared deposed in Paris. On September 4, 1870, France's Third Republic was proclaimed. Napoleon spent his final years with his family in exile in England, where he died of illness shortly before a planned political comeback. France remains a republic until this day. Thank you for watching.